Hello, people of the internet. This is Kaijin Noir. Here is Pete.
Hey,
And this is our review for Kick-Ass 2, the long-awaited sequel for the 2010 superhero R-rated movie. So Kick-Ass 2 takes place about several years after the first movie, where Dave has grown weary with his regular everyday life and decides he wants to be Kick-Ass again. So in order to do this, he starts training with Mindy, the former superhero known as Hit Girl. After enough time passes, Dave finally becomes Kick-Ass once again, and this time joins a superhero team led by Colonel Stars and Stripes, played by Jim Carrey. While he is fighting crime with his new allies, Chris D'Amico, a former classmate of Dave who in the first movie was Red Mist, is hell-bent on getting revenge on Kick-Ass for murdering his father in the first movie. And to do so, he becomes a new supervillain known as
the motherfucker.
and starts recruiting the best hitman the crime world can provide, giving them costumes and names, and starts becoming the world's first supervillain. So now Kick-Ass must find a way to protect his city, and at the same time trying to get Mindy back into the superhero business, because while all of this is going on, there's a major subplot where Mindy must decide whether or not she should use what her father taught her in the past, or give all that up to live a normal life. So, with this being the sequel to the 2010 Kick-Ass movie, what were your thoughts on that one?
Kick-Ass. And you could say kick-ass, kicked ass. Huh?
No.
Okay, well, with the first Kick-Ass, I really love that movie. I actually didn't know what to expect when going into it. It was obviously a very different kind of superhero movie. You know, you don't see these kinds of movies, and it's the content that it had was really gory, really bloody. The characters were a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. You had Dave, you had Hit Girl, and the thing I liked about Dave in the first movie was they make it so like you can really connect with him. He's just a student. He has no purpose really, and he states that he's not the funny guy. He's just nobody. And and sometimes in our lives, we all feel that way, and it grants a good connection between the character and yourself. So I really like Dave in that case. In the first movie, you had Nicolas Cage, who I had a really good time with him and Hit Girl, and overall, I love the first movie. There's no denying it for me. It was a really fun ride for me. How about you?
I completely agree with you 100%. It was something. I would say it's pretty much something that most that major audiences have never seen before. It tried to give a real world approach to the idea of being a superhero in the real world, while at the same time providing over the top action and comedy, and was able to blend all of that perfect, almost perfectly in my opinion. Obviously, the highlight for me was Nicolas Cage as the most badass Adam West Batman I've ever seen in my life. A Hit Girl, she was just as amazing. Not because she cursed a lot in that movie, no, but she was actually a very funny, very entertaining, believable character. And like you said before, Dave, aka Kick-Ass himself, was and also a very relatable character. Someone that you can totally get behind in some, kind of like a twisted way. Because, like the first movie, the sequel does not promote or celebrate the idea of becoming a vigilante. If anything, this movie tries to condemn vigilantism in a way, but we'll talk about that later. So, coming out of Kick-Ass 2, what were your immediate thoughts?
With Kick-Ass 2, for me, the beginning, it was... I felt it was strange that Kick-Ass had all of a sudden stopped crime fighting. Now, one of the things I realized is, he did get pretty messed up by the end of the first movie. He had done a lot of stuff, and honestly, I would think, I think it was mentioned in the movie that part of the reason why he gave it up was the damage that was being done to himself, if I'm correct. but that's part of what he wanted. That's part of the job. Maybe he didn't. I feel like maybe he didn't realize that. But I feel like it would have been more serious if he didn't realize, just how just everything he was doing, how many people he had killed, how many people died in the process. It wasn't just a danger to him; it was danger to people around him, and that's one thing I didn't always get behind with the movie. Was in the movie, he brings some friends into the situation, and I would think Kick-Ass has been through so much, and he sees what happens. He's seen people die, yet he's more than willing to let his friends join the same cause. And I get it, but I feel like it's almost irresponsible of him to do that. Two of his best friends join, and you see there's so many people dying throughout the movie. He shows little to no concern. That I honestly did not. I didn't like that character part from him. I didn't really care for Mindy. Was her?
Hit Girl?
I didn't care for Hit Girl's subplot of having to go to school and being a normal girl. I mean, it added to some funny scenes, but mostly it was just like a fish out of water situation for just a tad bit. I mean, heck, there was even a trailer that played for the movie Carrie, I believe.
Yeah, which seemed to be the exact same subplot, only turned into a full-on movie.
Exactly. I don't know if you guys get...
Well, of course, Carrie existed way before this movie was ever made.
Yeah.
In the comic.
But it's just funny because it's the same actress doing the same, the same story essentially. I know it's going to be completely... I'm sure it'll be different in a sense. But, to me, it was actually really funny and distracting that it had that. But again, I wasn't in for that typical subplot. I mean... With the first Kick-Ass, I saw a lot of originality, or at least I felt there was, and I felt like it lowered the bar when it came to the sequel. That's one thing I didn't like, but there's no denying that the movie immensely picks up near the second half. It is by all means that's the part you really want to see. On a side note, I really did like the majority of the other heroes that do come along. I was actually expecting, some kind of betrayal or some kind of issue similar to the first one. But no, I actually got really emotionally invested with Jim Carrey's character. What was his name?
Colonel Stars and Stripes. And pretty much everyone I've talked to, they say Jim Carrey looks unrecognizable in this role.
He does, and that's actually one thing I actually really liked about this movie. First of all, when I heard Jim Carrey's going to be in this movie, I was like, oh, that's going to be fun. And then I saw what he looked like, and I was thinking, well, that doesn't really look like Jim Carrey. I'm kind of impressed. And then, while I like Jim Carrey, I know most of his films, Jim Carrey plays Jim Carrey. And while it's fun, it can be fun at times, but it does get old. I was still excited to see him. It's Jim Carrey,
I'm going to have to disagree with you on the first half of the movie. I really enjoyed Hit Girl's subplot. It was something that wasn't done in the comics at all. By the way, I would like to bring up, you have not read the comics, right?
No, I have not.
I've read both the Kick-Ass and the Kick-Ass 2 comic. These two movies are far superior to their comic book counterpart. I feel like when it comes to Mark Millar and his storytelling, it feels like he really hates humanity and just wants to let everyone know that, because his two Kick-Ass comics felt very depressing and very mean-spirited in a way. I mean, it seems like, he wants every character to suffer in the most gruesome ways possible. So going into this movie kind of brings the story, takes the best elements of these stories and works their way around the unnecessary darkness from the comics. And a perfect example of that was Hit Girl's subplot, because in the Kick-Ass 2 comic, Mindy is still the same age she was in the first movie. Here in the movie, she's 15. She's going through a sort of an identity crisis. She's contemplating whether the things that her father taught her whether they were truly valuable or did more damage than good. And so I was really behind that. I mean, yes, there were certain characters within that subplot of hers that seemed very stereotypical, but I think they were having fun with those conventional high school archetypes that were shown in the film. As for David, aka Kick-Ass, I do have to agree with you that his way of thinking when it comes to going out there as a superhero and getting his friends involved I do agree with you that it's kind of inconsistent with what he has experienced in the past. And I guess that leads to one of my biggest problems with the movie is its tone. So at points it celebrates violence and it relishes it and in an over the top way to the point where you and I were like, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's no denying that.
But there are certain points where the movie gets really dark and shows and portrays a very realistic depiction of violence and what going out there and trying to fight crime can actually do to you and the people around you. So it seemed like it was kind of like very unbalanced with how it was handling the subject material.
See, I felt that a lot more from the first movie. The bad sides of being a superhero. I didn't feel it as much in this movie. It was there, but I felt it was much stronger. That what they're trying to get across in the first movie. And you said that that the movie does not. It doesn't showcase, like it doesn't make superheroes look like a good thing, right?
Right.
I would have to disagree. I feel like with this movie, with the people they're recruiting, I feel like in this movie they really are. They're trying to emphasize, and not necessarily emphasize the goodness of being a superhero, but I feel like they're almost glorifying being a superhero. They want people, they want help. You could say, in a sense, that what they're trying to do is you don't have to be a superhero. You could be a hero, go volunteer, go help out. And that's an argument that could be said. But at times I do feel like they do try to, say, go out there and be a superhero.
Although I did like how, like I mentioned before, that at the end of the day, the movie's telling you that trying to do this yourself, it's not a smart thing to do. So I appreciated that. Like you mentioned, Colonel Jim Carrey as Colonel Stars and Stripes, he was awesome. I would say he's about up there with Nicolas Cage as Big Daddy. Although, sadly, we don't see enough. I feel like we don't see enough of Colonel Stars and Stripes, and I guess you can say that's a problem that carried over from the comics, because in the comics he did not appear all that much as well. Although Jim Carrey certainly made this character much more memorable than he was in the source material.
And that's such a shame because he's actually such a likable character.
So very much.
And have people you've talked to? Do you see them often agree with what they felt with the character?
Oh yeah. Pretty much across the board, everyone said that he wasn't in the movie enough, and which is kind of weird because if you look at the promotional material, you see he's like advertised just as much as the main characters, even though he doesn't have anywhere near the same amount of screen time as the others. He has about as much screen time as the rest of the superheroes that Justice Forever is made up of.
Now that you mention it, like when you look at the covers for the movies, or the commercial, the posters, yeah. In the first one you had Kick-Ass, Hit Girl, Big Daddy, and Red Mist, correct?
Yeah.
Now in this one you have Kick-Ass. What was the captain's name? Or
Colonel Stars and Stripes.
Colonel Stars and Stripes, Hit Girl, and in this case, the Motherfucker. Now it's funny because you can literally see, that Colonel Stars and Stripes. He's meant to be the Big Daddy of this movie, and I don't know. I feel like you said. I really wish he had gone much more time, much more development, like Big Daddy had. I really wish I had seen more of him in that case.
Right. I kind of much like how Big Daddy was a mentor and father figure to Hit Girl. I would have liked to see Colonel Stars and Stripes. I would have liked to have seen Colonel Stars and Stripes be more. He's sort of a mentor to the other superheroes because he's the most experienced when it came to violence. But I feel like they could have done a lot more with that.
I agree. I completely agree. He didn't just been a mentor to one person, but the whole group. And I think that could have been taken just a step further, just to grab even more emotional investment. I completely agree with that.
Now I would like to talk about, what was his name again? Christopher.
His name is McLovin.
McLovin?
We're just gonna go with it. It's a lot easier to pronounce than his actual name.
Okay, McLovin it is. I really like McLovin as the main antagonist in this movie. He was a lot of fun. He's like this, it's kind of like this spoiled kid
Brat.
with spoiled brat with this very warped, twisted mentality on how life should work. This is obviously like he's a kid who's constantly he's like far over the edge, clearly insane, and having you can tell McLovin was having a lot of fun with this role.
Oh yeah, hey, just the beginning with the scene at his house. Oh god.
And pretty much he's so much more memorable than he is in the comic. The comic he's like a joke. Here he's also a joke played up for laughs, but the actor really brings his A game to make this character of like one of the most enjoyable antagonists I've seen in the movie. And I noticed that when it came to his actions in the comics were very, very dark, unnecessarily dark and violent. And what I liked about this movie is that they kind of not only do they downplay the like unnecessary violence from the comic, but they actually go out of their way to make fun of the worst moments of the comic. In my opinion, or that's the way I see it.
No, and you told me some of the scenes that were in the actual comic, and I agree with you. Like you said, there is very moments and times where there is unnecessary scenes, and like you said, when you pointed out a scene, which would indicated and you told me what actually happened, I completely agreed with you.
And I really like how he's going out of his way to recruit all these hitmen, especially Mother Russia. She was awesome.
Oh my god, Mother Russia. She's the only one who actually managed to do something. Like, for some reason, everyone else everyone else he hired was almost like useless. Like, they themselves recognized the power of Mother Russia.
And I love how she has this awesome scene where she's just mowing down a bunch of guys, both figuratively and literally mowing down guys.
That was the point where we were just pumped up with all the violence and the gore that was going on. I don't know. I don't know what to say to that.
That's obviously going to be like one of the most memorable scenes in cinema of the year 2013.
Yeah, don't forget her signature move. She has a signature move that she does to a couple people that causes them to die pretty often.
And as for I gotta mention John Leguizamo as the motherfucker's right hand man. He was really I was surprised to see him in this role, and I really enjoyed his character. I mean, he doesn't show up a lot, but he's like this older brother figure for the main antagonist, and I really liked what this actor brought to this movie.
You know, I completely agree. I really liked the relationship they had. While puzzling at times, he stood by him, no matter how stupid or insane the requests that McLovin had for him.
Right. Now, one last thing I want to talk to. Yeah, the girlfriend. I know. In the comics, Dave and his girlfriend and the girl that he liked never got together, so there was never a relationship present in the sequel, in the comic sequel. But here, they wrote her out of the movie in the most laziest way possible.
Lazy.
I was very disappointed with that. I mean, she quickly breaks up with Dave over the most stupidest reason ever. And I thought to myself, really, after what you went through in the first movie, you're gonna like endings like that?
Yeah, no, there was a certain scene in the movie where you could totally see the misunderstanding happen. It was completely obvious what was going to happen, and I'm like, they're just going to do her off. It's just going to happen. It's and like you said, I found it to be very, very lazy. I was actually very disappointed with that scene, but
because they actually made a it was a very compelling relationship in the first movie.
Yeah, and all she's there for is to be thrown away in this movie.
And what's weird is that Kick-Ass actually forms a relationship with one of the superheroes that he meets in the team. So I thought to myself, if he's going to end up in a relationship in this movie, why not let it be his girlfriend? And before I forget, I just have to say I really like the growing bond between Kick-Ass and Hit Girl. It really felt very that you can tell that these characters needed each other as they are going through this horrific time in their lives where they just do not know what to do, what direction their life should what direction their lives are going. It was really nice to have this bond between them.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where they're almost like brother and sister, you know.
Right, exactly.
Except that ending scene makes it kind of disturbing then. but but yeah, they're really close. And it's a really it's heartwarming seeing them work together, especially during the final scenes where, like, you know, they're gearing up.
Oh yeah, and that there's so much. I love this movie's build up to that awesome climax.
Yeah, I said it before, but the second half of this movie, especially near the ending, fantastic, amazing, definitely my favorite part of the movie.
Of course, and mine too. At that point, you're like, yeah.
During the second half, it was all, I was just pumped. I was just like on the edge of my seat, just like yeah, just super excited, just watching everything just going on. It was awesome. It was, like I said, the best part of the whole movie.
With that said, you ready for final thoughts?
Yes, I am. For the movie, like I said, I loved it. The beginning wasn't the best. I'm just going to go straight out and say I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It was definitely a fun movie. I wish a lot more people would go see it. It is violent, and I know that doesn't always speak to everyone, but it's a fun movie, and there's so many movies. It's such a fun movie, and the sad thing is, it's not. I feel like it should be doing much better in the box office than it's currently doing. Like you mentioned that it's losing out to a couple other movies, correct?
Right. I think it's at like number 4, number 5 right now. It's doing worse than the first movie. In the first movie, it was struggling. You know, it was already struggling. That was already struggling as it is. I mean, we were lucky to get this sequel.
And I'm saying, and while it's not like the best movie out there, I definitely feel like it should be doing much better than it is. It was generally a fun ride, and I do plan on buying this movie on DVD. And if it comes on TV, then you bet I'll be watching it.
Unlike you, I enjoyed not only the second half, but the first half as well. It brought in a lot of new things we haven't seen in the comics. This is one of the few instances where the film adaptation far surpasses the source material in terms of quality. The characters were great, they were memorable, they were funny, the action scenes are really going to get your blood pumping and get you very excited. This is on par with the first movie. I like this as much as the first movie. I can't really pick which one I liked more. So for that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I definitely recommend you check it out if you're at the appropriate age to watch R-rated movies, of course. So with that said, I'm Kaiju Noir.
And I'm Pete.
And until next time, everybody, take care.
We'll see you guys at the movies.